Hey collectors, welcome to Star Wars Collected. I'm Jonathan. If you're new, I hope you'll consider sticking around, subscribing, and if you've been here before, I hope you give me a like and just let me know that I'm not just talking to myself. But what I'm hoping to talk about today is Book of Boba Fett, collectibles that we might be seeing coming from Book of Boba Fett, and why we might have a huge issue in front of us. So before I get into what this issue could be, let's go a little bit into the history of what Boba Fett is and who he is. First time we ever saw him was in the Christmas special. Of course, he really made a first big impact in Empire Strikes Back. He comes back for Return of the Jedi. He meets his demise, except he doesn't, because then he pops up in season 2 of The Mandalorian, and now he has his own series coming here, The Book of Boba Fett, which will be out December 29th. We just found out that it's going to be 7 episodes. I'm very excited about that. Boba Fett was always one of my favorite characters growing up. His look is incredible. That's why we all know him and for the most part love him. He just has a really cool, iconic look to him. And that has spawned so many collectibles over the years, whether it is, obviously t-shirts, but also a lot of cosplay items, a lot of action figures. His Slave 1 has been done quite a few different times. And that might be kind of a huge issue for Book of Boba Fett. He's going to have a slightly different version of his paint job. Not a lot different than what we saw in season 2 of The Mandalorian. And of course, a lot of us has already bought collectibles from that, whether they be hot toys or, other items, maybe from Hasbro or something like that. So what's left? What are they going to sell us? This is a collecting channel. What are Hasbro and Hot Toys and everyone else out there who makes items? What are they going to sell us that maybe they haven't already sold us before? First thing I did when I decided I wanted to do this video was I went to Google and I just typed in Book of Boba Fett merchandise, collectibles, things like that, see what came up. A lot of pretty generic Boba Fett items, maybe it's a Boba Fett hoodie or a t-shirt. If you go to like Hot Topic, you can get like Book of Boba Fett wardrobe. You can just be head to toe Book of Boba Fett for the rest of your life. But those are kind of generic items. We kind of expect those things. The throne depiction that we saw at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, that's everywhere. You can get an ornament of it from Hallmark. We've seen Hot Toys release their version of it. Iron Studios, I think, has their own version of it as well. That seems to be sort of the leading depiction. Obviously we see that throne show up again in the trailers and things of that nature. And we've seen a couple Boba Fett in kind of dramatic poses type things. But we've already been on Tatooine a lot, and a lot recently with The Mandalorian. So some of the things that show up in the trailers, we have Tusken Raiders. There was just recently a Tusken Raider released from Hot Toys. We have Jawas. We've already had a lot of Jawas come out. So where are we going to find these new collectibles? What has not been made that I think they have a chance of making and have it be something that the market, at least that I would be interested in eyeing. So we're going to start off first with a couple one-to-one replicas. Those are my favorite things. I would love to see an EE3 blaster done by someone in a legit way. Of course, Master Replicas made one back in the day. It's incredible. It's also incredibly expensive, especially now in the secondary market. And you can, I have a 3D printer. I could 3D print one if I wanted to. But an EE3 blaster done in a very legit, full-size way would be a very cool blaster to have. And I think it would sell pretty well. Now, Black Series makes, helmets, and they make a couple other cosplay like things out there. With the lightsabers and things of that nature. So would it be possible that, in lieu of a lightsaber for Boba Fett, that the connection tie-in with this one is an E3 blaster? Perhaps. Another thing, as I just mentioned, Black Series helmets. So we have the Boba Fett Reforged helmet, which mine is hopefully on the way. I've seen a couple people get theirs early, or have gotten them before me. And so I'm excited to see that. That helmet is not the same as what we see in the Book of Boba Fett. It's similar, but the Book of Boba Fett helmet seems to already have a few more scratches and marks on it. I think he really just needs like a better primer and a better base coat or something. I don't know, I should send him my notes. I've made a lot of helmets. I'll send him my notes. But so would Hasbro have the gall to sell us what is almost identical to the helmet that they're releasing right now, but branded as Book of Boba Fett, and it has a couple more scratches on it? They've sold us and resold us the same helmet multiple times, but the paint job has tended to differ a decent amount. So I don't know if they would do that or not, especially considering the reforged Book of Boba Fett helmet is coming out basically right now, and with the launch date of Book of Boba Fett being December 29th, that doesn't leave them a lot of time to then come out with another one. When would that ship? So I'm kind of skeptical on that one. Fennec Shand has a really cool helmet. I'd love to build that at some point. But I just don't know if that would be something that would sit on a shelf at Target, at Walmart, and move with the same speed that obviously a Boba Fett helmet would move, or the Mandalorian helmet, or even the X-Wing helmets and things like that. I just don't know if it would move. So obviously all we've seen so far is sort of a teaser trailer. There were just 2 TV spots released, and I'm sure, just like the Mandalorian, they've only shown us snippets out of the first 1 or 2, maybe 3 episodes, and there will be a whole lot more story to tell. Who knows, maybe we're not staying on Tatooine the whole time, so maybe there'll be an opportunity for something obvious to pop up. We'll be like, of course, that'll be the next Black Series helmet, but I'm not sure. Moving out of the one-to-one replicas and into statues. Statues are probably my second love. I won't be surprised if we get something from Sideshow, especially in the premium format scale. Iron Studios already has sort of the throne version, but they make a lot of big stuff too, so I wouldn't be surprised if we got something from them. And Hot Toys has been sort of dabbling in this sort of quarter-inch, they've done it for years, but sort of this quarter scale, posable statues. And I could see them doing that just like they did for the Mandalorian. I mean, I always love a good Boba Fett statue, but kind of what the genesis of this video is about was sort of like, we've gotten quite a few Boba Fett premium format statues out there. And of course this armor's a little bit different. It's a different time in his life. Maybe it's more Tamora Morrison, featured, but is that like all that exciting? Is that going to really like move the needle for those companies to put in that R&D into those things to sell it? Maybe, perhaps, but if they all make one, maybe not. So I just don't know if that'll happen. And again, that throne, we keep seeing that pop up as a statue. Maybe that's something I'll add to my collection at some point if that ends up sort of being an iconic image from this series. But I just, we've gotten so much Boba Fett stuff over the years that how are they going to differentiate the Book of Boba Fett merchandise to really move it, to really get the collector community excited? Maybe I'm being pessimistic. Maybe, you put anything out there and we'll buy it, but that was just my thought on those. All right, let's move down a little bit in size. Let's go to 1/6 scale. Obviously, Hot Toys is always bringing out new merchandise, especially when you release a new piece of Star Wars content. So we are obviously going to get a Book of Boba Fett. Even if it is very similar to the reforged one that you can already purchase, I can guarantee you that they will do another version. Hot Toys and Hasbro both kind of do the same thing, where they kind of resell us the same figures each time. But at least with Hot Toys, they really go in there and re-examine what makes this version different. And they will get that exact paint job right, the armor and stuff like that moved. I think the gripe that we usually have with Hasbro is that it is the same helmet exactly, and they've just spray painted differently, so the battle damage and stuff like that is always in the same spot. So obviously we're going to get a Book of Boba Fett. At least I feel like that is a for sure thing. Fennec Shand has already been announced. You can't pre-order her nor purchase her right now. You can go to the RSVP page and join that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is just sort of holding on to that to kind of go along with Book of Boba Fett. Maybe she'll even come out with Book of Boba Fett branding on her opposed to the Mandalorian branding, which has sort of been my assumption when she was released. We don't know a whole lot about what's going on in the show. We do keep seeing an Ithorian though, and we've heard from earlier leaks that sort of the code name for that one is Hammerhead, because it kind of looks like a hammerheaded snail, I guess. So maybe that would be a kind of a cool piece. The Sideshow made an Ithorian a long time ago, and anytime you try to pick that one up on the secondary market, you're going to pay a pretty penny for it, and that's a really cool looking sculpt. Hot Toys doesn't always do the villains though, not always from Star Wars. Something like Solo, we didn't get the villain from that, and there's a couple other examples, but so I could, it just kind of depends. Is Hammerhead in there throughout the whole thing? Do they do enough to stand out? I don't know, but two things I can almost be for sure we're not going to get are more Jawas and more Tusken Raiders, especially the Tusken Raiders. literally were just released. So even though we're back on Tatooine, and it looks like Tatooine in many ways is going to be a character in the film, and of course you have to have Tusken Raiders as part of that, my guess is that they won't. So that'll be interesting to see. You know, right now when you look at the trailer, you see Fennec Shand, you see Boba Fett, you see Hammerhead, and then the only other person that kind of stands out is the Twi'lek that's played by Jennifer Beals. She keeps getting featured pretty heavily in the trailer. Who knows whether she'll be a main character or not. It would make a very cool hot toy with her skin color and being a Twi'lek. But as of right now, what we're seeing, not going to be a lot of options to pick from. Just again, we've gotten these, Fennec Shand's already been announced, and Book of Boba Fett, Boba Fett himself. We have quite a few options already out there that you can currently buy from Hot Toys. So we'll see what they come out with that is enough to make us excited and buy it. All right, now let's move down even smaller. Let's talk about the vintage collection, Black Series, things like that. So this is not a scale that I actively collect. I've purchased a couple Black Series figures before, but I think I've sold most of them. They were just sort of placeholders until I got a bigger version of that character in. One thing that stands out to me though is the Slave One. The vintage collection Slave One is something that highly sought after. It was released a few years ago, became hard to purchase. Sold out for a while. I got lucky, super lucky. I think it was earlier this year. I had been sold out for a long time. GameStop suddenly had an order, a pre-order or something like that, and at the same time put it on sale. I don't know why. So I snatched that up. So, but does that mean that it's too close? How can they really do the Book of Boba Fett without getting us another Slave One? But they really did just release a Slave One. So, is that market hungry enough to support another release of that? My guess is actually yes, because it is sort of a vehicle that I think you can kind of just continuously sell, and there will always be a market for it. And especially if it really kind of gets to show off in Book of Boba Fett. We've seen it do some cool things, mostly in Attack of the Clones. But if it does some really cool things in this, and they, change out some of the accessories and some of the playable items or something like that, shoot, if they basically just took the one that they make already, got rid of that little hinge on the side, and maybe changed how the canopy opens, I might even purchase a new one, because I kind of like those ships really as sort of an inexpensive model, and those are the two things on the exterior that I'm just not super hot about. So maybe the Slave One. Another thing I was thinking about is, does Jabba just sort of always have a Rancor? The story is that Bib Fortuna secured that Rancor for Jabba. I think it was like for his birthday or something like that. And when you watch The Bad Batch, Bib Fortuna shows up in that, securing a Rancor. Now the names don't match up, so we're not sure if that's supposed to be the same Rancor throughout. But is this something where Jabba's palace just always has a Rancor in it? That would be really cool to see in live action again, a Rancor. But I could see them, including it, not including it, whichever. But the HasLab Rancor right now is imploding. The things that they have given as sort of the stretch goals and kind of rewards for signing up and things like that, things that kind of help justify that price tag of $350, have not been resonating with the fan base. Order numbers have gone down after they've shown you like, hey, you're gonna get this piece of cardboard, or hey, you're gonna get this pile of bones. So not what people were looking for. So I don't know. You're not gonna do a Black Series Rancor, which is kind of what the HasLab one is. And of course, we've already had quite a few Rancors out of the vintage collection, but maybe they take this as an opportunity to dust that mold off and sell us another Rancor. Okay, now I think this is where it gets a little bit easier. You're talking about the vintage collection and or Black Series figures that we're going to get from the Book of Boba Fett. Obviously, we're going to get at least one Boba Fett, probably multiple Boba Fetts. I wouldn't be surprised if we got some sort of throne apparatus for them. I could really see that as sort of some sort of like Comic-Con exclusive type thing, but hopefully they release that as a separate piece, deluxe version of the Black Series, or a separate piece that you can purchase. I think that'd be really cool for Black Series collectors. In the trailer, we see these guys are sort of these burgundy parkour guys that seem to be the Hammerheads, like henchmen or something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got a version of that. Hammerhead is, of course, himself, Fennec Shand. we're gonna get some droids, I'm sure. There's always droids out there. EV9, D9 would be a really cool one to see. You know, I would actually love if, I believe it's she, were to be in the series a lot, because in Return of the Jedi, it has such sass. And we could always use a little more sass, especially some sass going towards Boba Fett. I'd love to see it. I think we're gonna see Jennifer Beals' Twi'lek character, so that would be really cool to see. The Gamorrean guards, which look really skinny now. You know, we saw them in season 2 of The Mandalorian in the very first episode, but I figured that was just because they were boxers, so they were like really fit versions. But in the backgrounds, they look so much less plump and so much less sort of disgusting than what I remember in Return of the Jedi. Maybe Bib Fortuna was not feeding them as well as Jabba was. Maybe business hasn't been quite as good. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some sort of swoop bike, or I'm not sure if those technically clarifiers a swoop bike, some kind of speeder bike that comes out. Bib Fortuna, maybe, and I'll get to that in a moment. Very first trailer shows the Bomar Monk. That is one of the few pieces that I purchased as a figure from the vintage collection. I think it was some kind of mail away type thing, and I have that in my collector glass things back here. And it's just, what a cool design, what a cool character. So I would love to see them reintroduce that figure, or come up with a new version of it, maybe for the 6-inch scale. I would actually probably purchase that if it was a Black Series piece. And then Jabba's Palace playset. So they not just, but within the last couple of years, they did a vintage collection version of this. And, you know, it was very centric to Return of the Jedi. It had, you know, a little area for Han Solo to be, and obviously it was sort of set up for Jabba. So, you know, maybe they'll rework that slightly, use a lot of the same molds, and sell us a new version of that. There were some speculation back when, before we knew what the Rancor was. If you went back and watched my Rancor HasLab video, I think one of the things we speculated about was that it could be a Jabba's Palace playset in the Black Series scale, which would be massive. So that'd be kind of a cool additional piece we haven't seen before. So I mentioned Bib Fortuna. I said we get back to it. So that's what this is. This is not a spoiler, speculation spoiler. It's only a spoiler if I end up being right, but who knows if that's going to happen. So we'll say this is speculation spoiler. There are parts in the new TV ad that would appear that maybe they take place at a different time than The Mandalorian. So, you know, we see at the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, we see, you know, Boba Fett and Fennec Shan. They come down the stairs and they kill Bib Fortuna and they take the throne. I think our assumption was like this is sort of linear storytelling, and that the Book of Boba Fett picks up right after that, because, you know, right after that is a title card for the Book of Boba Fett. But I guess we don't really know that. For all we know, part of this story takes place, you know, that could be in the middle of, or maybe, you know, could be in the middle of the story, it could be at the end of the first episode, something of that nature. In the new trailer, we see what appears to be Boba Fett without his armor, in a Bacta tank, and obviously you've noticed in the trailers that he has a lot less scarring overall, so he's had some kind of healing done, which of course would be after what we saw in season 2 of The Mandalorian. But there's also a scene where they sort of poke into Jabba's palace, and they seem to sort of be looking for someone around the Slave One. So maybe there's an intruder and they're trying to hunt him down there. Maybe it's the fact that this is the first time that Boba Fett has seen the Slave One since Return of the Jedi. And if that was the case, obviously, he has the Slave One in season 2 of The Mandalorian, so that would place that scene beforehand. So it's possible that we might see more Bib Fortuna in this. You know, it seems like that's the first time, obviously, that Bib Fortuna has seen Boba Fett in a long time, but, you know, maybe he hears something beforehand. Who knows? But, you know, possibly we'll see a Bib Fortuna, little fatter than he was before. Still pretty gross. All right, collectors, more so than most of my other videos, this is sort of a conversation starter. I want you guys to hop down in those comments. Let me know, what collectibles are we gonna see from the Book of Boba Fett? Because I'm having a really hard time figuring out what they were gonna put out, because this story takes place so close to The Mandalorian, and so many of the same characters and places and species. We've gotten those recently within the last couple of years. Is that going to stop the companies that we love to hate or love to love, you know, from re-releasing those things or releasing slightly tweaked versions of it? Or are we missing, you know, the fact that we're only seeing probably the first episode or two in the trailers. And there's a whole world that's going to be shown in the book of Boba Fett over 7 episodes. And it's going to be obvious when we're watching it, like, oh yeah, that's going to be the new Black Series helmet. And oh my gosh, what a great opportunity for a hot toy. Maybe that'll end up being the case. Let me know in the comments down below what you'd like to see, what you think is going to be coming. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. If you like videos like this, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out. I love you guys, all right? See ya.